In one part of its capital city yesterday, the fear and frustration became overwhelming. These people were furious that the body of a woman who died of Ebola had been left on the street for 2 days. Police used tear gas to restore order. The United Nations says this epidemic is out of control.
Ebola got a head start on us. It is far ahead of us, it is running faster than us, and it is winning the race. We either stop Ebola now, or we face an entirely unprecedented situation for which we do not have a plan.
No plan. What a surprise.
The latest figures show just how rapidly the disease is spreading. By the middle of July, there'd been around 600 deaths from Ebola. A month later, that number had doubled. By September, it had doubled again, and now almost 4,500 people have died. Britain is preparing to send the hospital ship Argus to the West African coast. A field hospital team is also flying out later today. But the UN has warned that the international assistance pledged so far isn't nearly enough. Meanwhile, in Freetown, the body which caused a near riot was eventually removed. It won't be the last. The disease now kills 70% of those who catch it. Richard Lister, BBC News.
All right, so what do you think about that, folks? Pretty tragic what's going on over there in Sierra Leone. It's just as bad in Liberia and in Ghana, which I'll cover in a minute. Obviously, Ebola is topping our list of subject matter today. We got a lot of things to talk about, several things on there. The markets, I haven't even checked the markets before coming on the futures, but it's when the futures were indicating down 250 points last time I checked, so we are probably more than likely looking at another down day. A lot of them are attributing it to Ebola. I think that has a little bit of a factor. I don't know if that's everything involved there. So this is the Francesco Abbruzzino Show. This is Frankie, as my friends and mother like to call me. This is a one-man show. I do all the technical, the research, the hosting, the website, everything. Basically doing it for free for about the past 5 years. And you will see some stuff, some commercials that I bring up, and they're great. I mean, if you click on them through my website, through the uncensoredreport.com, I get credit for them. I don't think I made maybe $5 off of it, but the best thing is it gives me time to go up and pull up more data and stuff that I do, all my research, so that I can discuss and talk through it without you guys looking at me wondering what the heck I'm doing. So let's go ahead and let's talk Ebola, folks, because that's what the real scare is today. And it does, we're talking about riots in the Sierra Leone, which I just put up on the screen. And you have the health officials over there in West Africa, and they're continued to be overwhelmed with what's going on over there, the epidemic. And, it's strange because they're saying if it gets bad and if it continues to get worse, to 10,000 a week like they're predicting, then they won't be able to handle it. But to me, it looks like they can't handle it now. And I've seen this before. I put up the videos before. I think the last one I put up was Liberia, where a guy that had Ebola had escaped the quarantine area and was running around the streets. And they had to grab him, throw him into the back of the truck. But you're seeing stuff like that almost on a daily occurrence over there. You're seeing it in Ghana, too. Ghana, after members of a delegation sent to educate residents, after they got there, they were attacked by an angry mob. And a lot of people are concerned. They're overwhelmed. Sierra Leone, they just had a martial law, essentially, where they were quarantined for X amount of days. I think it was 3 days, but I think they ended up even doing it for longer. Now there's this other thing out here with the WHO, and I don't know, WHO's got boots on the ground there, and they're essentially the CDC of the UN. And they're out there, and they're indicating something that I have not seen on major media, and that's Ebola has a 42-day incubation period, not 21 days, as we've been hearing. And this is a report that the WHO put out back in October 14th, stating that essentially 1 in 20 Ebola infections has an incubation period that's longer than 21 days. And they repeated a claim, which is it's been the 21 days has been repeatedly claimed by the CDC as the incubation period. Is it longer? And this is a research report they put out on Ebola. The Ebola Situation Assessment Report, if you want to look it up. And it explains that 95% of the Ebola infections experienced during the incubation period within the widely reported 21-day period was pretty accurate. But 98% had an incubation period that falls within 1 to 42 days. And that's where this article gets a little weird, because it says that, but then it comes on later and it says that 95% of the Ebola incubations occur from 1 to 21 days. So that's the norm. So what CDC is basically coming out and they're saying, look, 95 days, we're going to go ahead and say that covers all. But it's not a cover-all scenario, because the other 3% are from 21 to 42 days. So 3% of the people that have contracted Ebola, and that's more than the 4,447 that have died. It's up around 10,000. That 3% of them, so 300 of them, have an incubation period of 21 to 42 days. And another 2%, another 200 of the Ebola incubations have not been explained, and they don't know why. And so what's this mean to us? If you're going, you're trying to interpret it, what does that mean to the common person out there? And essentially that 1 in 20 Ebola infections may result in incubation periods that are lasting significantly longer than 21 days. That's about 5%. And this 21-day quarantine period that's currently being enforced by the CDC may be insufficient. It's a bit misleading, and they're not communicating everything out there to the public. And major media is not helping either, because this was put out to all the media outlets. People who released it are released from the observation or self-quarantine after the 21-day may still become full-blown Ebola patients. And that's up to 3 weeks afterwards, even if they showed no infection signs up to 21 days. And any declaration that an outbreak is over requires 42 days with no infection, according to the WHO. But you're not hearing anything about this rule. You're not hearing anything out there in major media. You're really not seeing anything about this report out there, which is concerning. Just as disturbing is that the WHO's opening warning that the government health officials who are announcing negative Ebola findings in patients in just a mere hours after giving them a lab test, that's grossly misleading the public. They're calling it basically quack medicine and stating that you can't really determine if the person has Ebola within a couple hours, that the tests take much longer, more like a 48-hour turnaround time. And so they're coming in, they're testing these people that have been possibly around someone that's been West Africa, around someone that's has Ebola, have been to West Africa, and they're showing symptoms. You go in, you get tested, 2 hours later, oh, no, you don't have it, it's something else. But the WHO is saying, how can this be? Because it takes like 48 hours before you get an accurate test. And finally, what it does conclude is that the Ebola outbreaks of Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone are multiplying out of control, which I think we all know. And it's curious phenomenons of unexpected outbreak surges that just keep taking place. And they're erratic. They're just happening out of nowhere. And they're not sure how to handle it. So here we go. We got our U.S. doctors and health officials, and they're all being given 21 days. It's a 21-day period. And it sounds like another mess up by the CDC. You know, we had the CDC, Friedman, come on. He's like, hey, oh, wow, we screwed up. We essentially, their training to the nurses were, go to this website, learn all you can. That was the training they were giving these people on how to deal with this highly infectious disease. I'm a commoner. But still, to me, I'd be like, I'm not going in there. I have not had sufficient training. You tell me to go to a website, and that's my training? It's extremely disturbing to realize that our best knowledge, every single person in the United States out there has been instructed to monitor a person for 21 days, and when they should be monitoring them for 42 days. So you could be cleared, go home, hang out with friends, hang out with family. Next thing you know, it erupts. Next thing you know, you're spreading the virus. So why is anyone reporting this? How is it not that one of the most important pieces of information in the world at this moment is not getting out there on a virus that has a 70% kill rate? Then we got our troops that are going there. I think we have 400 on the ground right now. We're planning on sending 4,000. Did you know that there was here's something that's interesting. Again, it's puzzling. There was a memo put out by the DOD. And it basically comes out and says, okay, when you guys come back, you're going to be quarantined for 21 days somewhere near D.C., some facility. But they're talking about the troops that are already over there. And they said, look, if someone does become infected, we're rushing them back here. We're rushing them back to the United States, to this unknown location, this facility outside of D.C. But what's alarming is when you look through their manual, and it's essentially a manual that breaks down the Ebola virus and some of the hazards that come along with it, some of the latest medical research, okay? And over there, it's essentially, and I'm trying to find it right now, it's saying that, hold on. I don't have it up here, but essentially what it was saying is that the virus is potentially airborne. It was indicating this, and it was on, and they had the page numbers and everything, and I put it on my Educate Inspire page, but it breaks down this Army manual, and it's essentially saying, look, we need to be cautious because it's possibly airborne. This is some of the precautions to do. This is what we need to do. If you're in this area, do this, and it's all broken down the DOD. Yet you, in the same corner, you have the government telling us, oh, it's not airborne. Oh, you don't need to worry about it. You can sit next to a guy on a bus and not worry about it. You know, and then you got Obama. He finally put a czar in charge that has zero medical experience. He put this lady, White Homeland Security Advisor Lisa Monaco. She has no professional medical experience. She's named the point person, or the Ebola czar. And this is the same person that earlier this month assured the public that the government had this whole outbreak under control. She said, we know how to do this. We will do it again. We got it under control. It's very important to remind the American people that the U.S. has the most capable healthcare system. How confident are you with this lady as the Ebola czar? You know, they asked the press secretary, they pressed this guy, Josh Earnest, about it, and he said, look, the way he approached the questions was he was anticipating criticism for her lack of medical credentials. But he essentially explained it away like that's a non-issue. I don't know if it's a non-issue, folks, in this case. You know, her professional history concentrates mostly on law. No medical training whatsoever. Why not just throw a goofball like me in there? You know, she's in charge of she's a Homeland Security Advisor. Counterterrorism, that's her specialty. Let her stick to that. So, you know, it's funny, it's strange. You look at everything that he's doing, everything that Obama is doing, from the coffins, and I think I showed you guys a video where they have these black coffins. You can fit like nine bodies in them. You got to be able to seal them. There's a ton of them, and I think it's in Texas. And everybody's questioning, why do you have these? Why do we have these? They're like plastic coffins. And then you see stuff like this where Obama isn't canceling flights from Western Africa. He's bringing people here with Ebola. He's not training the hospitals on how to handle it and putting Ebola patients in there. He's putting an Ebola czar in charge that has no experience. He's keeping an incompetent Friedman at the CDC. The same Friedman and the same CDC, I shouldn't say Friedman, but the same CDC that Friedman's over that told the lady, this second person that just got Ebola, she contacted him. And she said, look, I've been around Duncan, and I've been exposed by Ebola. My temperature, we're self-monitoring. My temperature's up to 99 degrees. Can I travel to Cleveland to help plan my wedding? And they said, yeah. And I'm thinking, wait a second. You've been around Duncan. You've been exposed to this whole Ebola. Your temperature's rising, obviously. At 99, it's rising. Should this person really be on a plane? Should this person really be traveling? And again, I have zero medical experience. I mean, I know medical billing and coding, that's my specialty. I'm a consultant in it, but I don't think this person should have been on the plane. I don't know for what reason the CDC sent them. And then Friedman came out with CDC and said, look, this person should have never been on the plane. It's like, oh, really? Really? Tell us something we don't know. And then to top it off, now there's coming out allegations from the nurses union that the first 2 days while in there where you had 50 people walking in and out of Duncan's office, guess what? They were not following any guidelines, any processes for somebody that has this level 4 highly contagious disease. Now, the CDC, like I said, they told this lady to go, low-grade temperature, and she flew. Now they're looking for 132 people that I think the press is calling the Ebola flight of fear. Oh, and I just found that medical army research that I was looking for. And this is basically a handbook that's published by the U.S. Army. It's a medical research institute on infectious disease. And they said that they sent out more than 100,000 copies and distributed this to the military and civilian healthcare providers. And on this page, it says 177. I'm going to repeat it. It says viral hemorrhagic fever. In several instances, secondary infections among contacts and medical personnel without direct fluid exposure have been documented. These instances have prompted concerns of a rare phenomenon of aerosol transmission of the infection. That's on page 177 of that manual I just explained to you. So research it. Google it. It's the handbook published by the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Disease. So here you are. They're obviously telling their people it can be spread through the air, yet you have this government and Obama saying it's okay to sit next to someone on a bus. Unless you've got their fluid all over you, you're not in any trouble. And it is a confusing disease. I mean, you have the whole Duncan family that was sitting in there with these bloodstained sheets, the vomit, guys cleaning up the sidewalk with the vomit, the family stuck in that room. And they're on day, let's see, I think day 14 was Sunday, so 15, 16, 17, today's Wednesday, 18 days, and showing no signs of the virus. Yet people that were around Duncan after that are already coming down with it. So it's weird. How exactly is it spread? I would have thought this family that was exposed to it would have come down with sometimes symptoms related to Ebola, but no. So far, they're in the clear. Now, does that mean that? Could it be that each person handles this differently? I know my kids get sick. Not my kids, really. My wife gets sick right away, all the time. For me, I rarely get sick. I'm a lot more healthier. Are they reacting differently to it than this Duncan guy? That's the question. You have the largest U.S. nurses out there union. They're making those allegations I told you about where the people were walking in for 48 hours and not following any guidelines in the emergency room. They said he sat there. It was an open area. About 50 people went in and out. They said they were forced to use medical tape to secure the openings of their flimsy garments, so they weren't too secure at all. They said that Duncan was kept in a non-isolated area in the emergency room for several hours, exposing up to 7 other patients. Patients who may have been exposed to Duncan were kept in isolation only for a day before moving them to other areas with other patients. Why weren't they isolated for 21 days? Or 42, as we're finding out now, right? They said that nurses treating Duncan were also caring for other patients in the hospital. And that preparation for Ebola at the hospital amounted to little more than an optional seminar for staff. That's it, an optional seminar, and referring them to the webpage. And that they're constantly facing shifting guidelines on how to handle this. So the nurses unions out there, they're concerned. Now the hospital came out and they said, "Oh, that's not true," and they're saying it's not. Sorry, I got a dog running loose in here. All right, let's get our focus back. Okay, we're back. So we talked about the quarantine of the troops. That's been a concern that they were going over there to this hazard zone. Why are we sending them? They're essentially going there to help build up facilities and to quell to help quarantine and quell the any riots or any issues that get out of control over there. Some people believe that they're being sent there as a strategic process from AFRICOM to try to leverage and get our guys over there because they're concerned about China and their investment in the area and the stronghold that China's getting over there. Also, another issue, folks, is we have our border. And it's not something you're hearing too much about, but you had this former border agent come out, and he's alleging that the CDC is disappearing Ebola victims. He's saying that this guy, Agent Zach Taylor, he's divulged that the CDC is working with the Border Patrol authorities and the Department of Homeland Security to essentially disappear potential Ebola victims that are attempting to cross the border. He claims that he has seen individuals that came along and looked like they had systematic symptoms out there. And let's go ahead and we're going to try to play this. Hold on one second.
My name is Zach Taylor.
Hold on.
I'm a retired Border Patrol officer. My main job was understanding and having intelligence capabilities about drug smuggling across the U.S. border and human smuggling across the U.S. border to bring contraband and people into the United States. That's what I did for 26 years. National security is a component of the immigration laws and the reason that immigration officers exist, because the immigration laws are designed to primarily do just two things: protect national security and public safety. The component of national security is the economy and American jobs, because the foundation of American society, which is the family unit, depends on jobs and the economy for their livelihood. On the other side is the public safety, which includes public health, and that is so the people will be secure in their persons and their property from outside source threats. In other words, people coming in to take over America by force or by subterfuge. Right now, Department of Homeland Security is in charge of, through Customs and Border Protection, the apprehension and collection of the illegal aliens. This Center for Disease Control and Prevention is in charge of the screening with the U.S. Public Health Service. I've never seen the CDC or U.S. Public Health Service work together with the Border Patrol at the border, ever. The agents are telling us that they're seeing some people that are obviously sick with shivering type illnesses, with possibly dehydrating illnesses like diarrhea and vomiting. But those people are disappearing. We don't know what they have, where they're going, where they're taking them. Surely they're being quarantined somewhere. We just don't know where. And even the agents don't know what the diagnosis is of these illnesses. Tie that in with the fact that these people can come through almost anywhere in the world and are funneling into Mexico. And we already know there's epidemic levels of certain diseases in Mexico and Central America. We don't know if these people are showing these diseases, if they're even being screened for them. The real troubling part of this is we know that in West Africa right now, there's an Ebola outbreak that does not meet the parameters of communicable diseases. Normally, Ebola virus starts in the jungle and moves into an indigenous population in the jungle, and then from there into a larger population area. What they're experiencing in West Africa in 3 countries right now is an Ebola outbreak in 3 separate cities at the same time. This is very unusual. It is almost as if the virus was planted in those 3 cities to infect that population. In other words, the virus is working in the reverse of what it has historically, Before, it moved from the jungle into the populated area. Now it's starting in the most populated areas in those cities and working through the population. If we had a control event, I'll give you an example. Border Patrol has a drug smuggling operation and they've been surveilling it. And after the car loads up and takes off, we stop the car. And the person driving the car hands us a diplomatic passport, saying they're a diplomatic alien inside the United States. We stop right there. We call the Department of State. The Department of State takes it from there. The person is not prosecuted. Yes, we may or may not seize the vehicle and the drugs. The United States public never knows that happened. That's a controlled event.
All right, so what do you think about that,
This
folks? Hold on.
situation where you have hundreds of thousands, literally,
All right,
of people.
so what do you think about that situation, folks? Controlled event. And that's interesting about that whole diplomatic thing coming across the border, because I didn't even realize that. Now, should we be worried? Should we be concerned at how this is being handled, about the process that is being taken place there? I loved what he had to say about Ebola. How is it a planted virus? Because it did not spread. It did not start how it normally has in the past. Pretty interesting stuff. All right, we'll be right back after this commercial.
Is your money manager giving you safety and security? Wouldn't you like to make your money work harder for you? Then you should consider joining philsgang.com, where thousands of individual investors have successfully profited.
This year I'm up 60% on my portfolio. Following your system has been fantastic. I've been with you for about a month and a half now, and I'm already up 7%.
I've been in the business for a long time, and you're really one of the best I've ever heard.
Well, I just want to let you know what a great teacher you are.
For over a decade, philsgang.com's Phil Grandy and Donald Cogswell have been teaching, coaching, and investing right along with all Phil's Gang members.
I want to thank Donnie for market wrap. I bought 2,500 shares of AUI and sold it this morning at $820 profit.
Why not join thousands of satisfied Phil's Gang customers today? Go to philsgang.com, philsgang.com, or call 877-600-4264. That's 877-600-4264. Call today.
philsgang.com. Check them out. They're a huge sponsor of my weekend show. He has a live show at 9 and again at 3 o'clock. He talks primarily about finances, and he's a guru of the financial charts out there and does pretty successful. He also talks about economic issues or social issues that impact the economy. So listen to them. Again, a huge sponsor of mine. I was just out there yesterday recording my weekend show, and they do everything they can to try to accommodate me and help me to get the message out there. So check out philsgang.com. Now, one other thing I did want to mention is that whole with Ebola, you have this other virus that's coming across the border, and nobody's really talking about it. I think it came across the border. I think it's pretty coincidental that it started up at the same time that this border issue started, that it's spreading with the kids, and these are the same kids that are in schools where many of these illegals are being implanted in without us having any say, all because Barack Obama wants it done that way. Essentially, the U.S. news media is giving very little attention to what is one of the most significant and alarming health stories out there, and that's this whole D68. We've had it here before, folks, but it was a real weak virus. It wasn't this mutated, strong virus that we're seeing now that just appeared at our door. And there's been speculation, like I said, it's for me too, that this virus mostly targets kids, came over with the illegal miners from Central America. The WHO, they put out an alert about this. Exceptionally rare for them to do that, but they put out a warning about this outbreak in the United States. And the last time we saw a global alert like this for the virus was in 2008 when it was over in China. But yet the U.S. media has basically largely failed to talk about this virus. A virus that's killed a few kids, a virus that paralyzes you, a few kids. No, I shouldn't say it paralyzes everyone. It's paralyzed in a few cases. Since mid-August, the CDC has confirmed more than 600 cases. Again, it started up essentially when schools started, when all these illegals were being, when the schools were being forced to take these illegals in. And like I said before, it's usually causes mild to severe respiratory illness. You get a runny nose, a cough. Some people might think you have the flu. And until back, it was first identified, I think, back in California in 1962. But until the current outbreak, it was rarely ever diagnosed here in the States, folks. We're not talking about a virus that's always here, that we see annually. This is a virus that's rarely ever here, and then boom, it suddenly shows up. And guess what? A lot of the kids that were being tested have this virus. This virus is widespread down there in Central America. So let's send Obama a thank you card. Let's tell him how much we appreciate him importing Ebola, him importing D68. What else can he bring us? Oh, yeah, he imports the terrorist over here, too. What is wrong with this guy? I'm really starting to get... if I wasn't freaked out before, I really am now. And this guy concerns the heck out of me, folks. Now, another issue, and this relates more to during the Bush time. During the Persian Wars, which was something I was part of. But I was under the first Bush when I was in the Navy then. And this is more under the second Bush. And it's the fact that Washington concealed that U.S. troops were exposed to chemical weapons in Iraq, and that they really did have caches of chemical weapons, up to 4,990 chemical munitions. And that's according to Iraqi and U.S. officials that have basically certified these previously classified documents. And now the concern is that they may be in the hands of the militants, the ISIS militants. So they have this report, and it came out, and it's basically packed with interviews and redacted intelligence about 17 service members and 7 Iraqi police who were exposed to nerve or mustard gas between 2004 and 11. In this article, it detailed the harrowing chemical encounters of several servicemen. And if you first take a look at it, it seems inconceivable that the United States who argued for an invasion with Iraq because of the chemical weapons, because they're harboring these chemical weapons of mass destruction, that you wouldn't want to discover it. So why would they keep it hush hush? One reason is that the report suggests that the United States was largely responsible for Iraq having the chemical weapons in the first place. That's right, folks. We supplied them. The munitions appear to have been designed here in the States, manufactured in Europe, and filled with chemical agents in production lines that were built in Iraq by Western companies. Many of the casings of the M1110s, they're United States military, and they developed decades ago to disperse a white phosphorus or a white mustard gas. We also exported the shells and technology behind them. This is why this story, this is why it's disturbing, folks. But it gets even worse. During the Iraq-Iran war back in 1988, Baghdad actively sought the development of chemical weapons from a number of countries, and they got them. And guess which countries were? United States, Germany, Netherlands, UK, France. And it's already been widely documented that at least 50,000 Iranian soldiers and civilians were killed from Iraqi chemical weapons that we provided. So you wonder why Iran hates us. There you go. And this is especially worrying because since June, the sensitive area has been in the possession of the Islamic State. So do they now have those chemical weapons? Questions as how the United States kept the exposure of its troops by chemical weapons under wrap in secret for so long is disturbing. You know, you got to sit here and wonder, like when Cheney came out and said, "Hey, look, you think 9/11 was bad? There's going to be a far deadlier attack." What does he know that we don't know? Does he know about other weapons that may have been there that we don't know about that were provided by the United States so we never leaked out that information? This is all stuff that keeps me up at night, folks. We'll be right back. Get some of this great apparel from theroguegrant.com or the Uncensored Report or thevintagescoop.com. We have hats, shirts, coffee mugs. They say educate, inspire, and change. Or for my Scoop fans, it'll say the Vintage Scoop, Sarasota Scoop, etc. Help me with this operation so I can continue to get a fresh perspective on the news out to the masses. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Just go to my website and click on the icon. Okay, visit that apparel store anytime. I've gotten a few of the hats, shirts, coffee mugs. They're great. I wish I had one right here to show you. The educate, inspire, and change shirts are nice. And just check them out. Check them out. Go to my page, theuncensoredreport.com, and look at them. See if you're interested. Now, we want to talk about Pentagon and their push for climate hysteria to justify globalism, to justify waste. And so, essentially, after being ridiculed for squandering taxpayer funds on this 2003 climate report, despite being widely hyped in the establishment press, it got literally everything wrong. Everything but wrong. Obama's cadres of global warming alarmists and the Pentagon are at it again. Chuck Hagel, he's parroting a wide range of discredited talking points to come up with the idea that this whole climate change thing is good. And the Defense Department is vowing to spend more and more public and borrowed wealth to integrate dubious theories on global warming. The U.S. Armed Forces will also increasingly be used to prop up anti-American regimes and globalism under the guise of battling climate change that's non-existent. And the Pentagon, they dubbed it the 2014 Climate Change Adaptation Roadmap. Aside from this cozy up, dangerous anti-American regime approach they're using, Hagel spent much of the time sounding alarms about alleged global warming. Climate change. He says that it is a threat multiplier because it has potential to exacerbate many of the challenges we already confront today, such as infectious diseases and armed insurgencies. So Hagel was out there. He told these defense ministers that gathered that the climate change would give debt-laden U.S. government more opportunities to fund and collaborate with these regimes, these Latin regimes. He also announced that a strengthening partnership with the regime ruling down in El Salvador on climate and military matters, the FSP. He's a Castro lackey. The guy that's in charge there, Salvador Turin, I think. He recently won what critics said was a rigged election. And he did it with the help of the Council on Foreign Relations and some of the most vicious criminal gangs that roam El Salvador. And the regime of El Salvador was one of the four chosen by Obama for his partnership for growth, which includes such benefits as even greater levels of foreign aid from the United States. Isn't that nice of Obama? He does so many good things out there. The actual report makes that it's abundantly clear as well as that climate will be the new catch-all excuse for Obama to justify any unconstitutional machinations, squandering of our money, our taxpayer funds, and abuse of the American military, my brothers in arms. Essentially with this, the military could be called upon to quell any uprisings, to offer support to the civil authorities. One of Obama's senior scientists, he used to be, came out and he exposed this consensus deception in the Wall Street Journal. He came out and he said, look, there is basically no scientific consensus about climate change. He goes, they might all be coming out and saying that, but when you look at the records, when you look at the documentations, when you look at the level of detail, when you look at the computer models, it's not there. This is that Stephen Koonin character. And he's basically arguing that climate change is a farce. So what is the reason for these blatant fact errors? The deception. Garbage in, garbage out. The dubious Pentagon report cites the Obama admin widely ridiculed and thoroughly discredited the National Climate Assessment, that it was debunked point by point. So what do we do here? There has been no warming for 18 years and counting, folks, which contradicts every single climate model out there. Discrediting theories linking man's relatively insignificant emissions of gas of life to alleged rises in the temperature. And one key purpose of the climate alarmism will be advanced globalism and unconstitutional schemes which they hope to push through with this new agenda. The latest Pentagon report. This may also be an attempt to get the focus off the DOD and their previous climate report, which was commissioned back in 2003 under the guise of forecasting what global warming might do by 2013. And according to that report, California should be flooded right about now. Netherlands should be unlivable. The polar ice should be gone, and temperatures should be surging. But we don't see any of that. And it's 2014. As with the latest report, in each UN claim, the establishment press hysterically trumpeted the DOD warnings. The initial scheme to link global warming with national security. Yet when every single one was proven wrong, the press failed to point out a decade later that every single prediction was incorrect and that the taxpayers had been fleeced. And this evidence suggests that this latest Pentagon report will serve the same purpose, folks. It'll drum up the hysteria to justify a wide range of abuses against taxpayers, the military, science, and humanity as a whole. So we should be concerned about this. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, this is Frankie, and I'm here today to introduce Longevity. It's a great nutritional supplement to anybody that's eating right or not eating right. I take supplements on a regular basis, and Longevity cannot be beat, especially at some of the great price points. So go to theroguerant.com or theuncensoredreport.com and click on shop. Go down to Longevity, click on it, and you'll be helping out the operations of the station so that we can continue to bring you a fresh perspective on alternative news. Longevity, check it out today. Okay, folks, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about ISIS, and we mentioned briefly about the whole chemical weapon thing when I was discussing how they actually found chemical weapons, that they were actually that our military were exposed to it, and the concern now is that ISIS has taken over the area where these chemical weapons were potentially stored at, and that they may have them. Okay, which is obviously a great concern. Now we're looking at just the overall fight. The fight to get in there and destroy ISIS. Now, one of the approaches which I've been against because I've been following it is arming Syrian rebels. And I think I covered it yesterday where the president came in and he's like, he's discovering that you can't arm FSA because they're not, A, they're not moderate, and B, they're not in support of Obama's agenda. And C, they're working with ISIS. So now they're looking at other groups that are outside Syria that they could potentially arm to go in there. I'm sure they're offering them free incentives to go in there and fight and give up their lives. Now, in comes the CIA study. And the study was basically against arming Syrian rebels, stating that it would not work. However, even though the Pentagon came out and said that, Obama moves forward. Once again, not listening to his leadership. To the people. Essentially, he's the president. You got a team out there. Just like I own a company. I have my team out there. They come to me with the different ideas. I can't be knowledgeable in every aspect, so I have people that I rely on for certain information. And same happens with me. My clinics, they rely on me for my billing information on the medical industry. And they're not going to go to their person that does transcription paperwork to ask them about medical billing. They're going to first come to me. And then they're going to take the information I give, and they're going to hopefully make an educated decision. And that's how it should work with the president. But despite the conclusions of the CIA study, which found that arming rebels was hardly ever resulted in toppling of the governments, Obama decided to plunge ahead with this plan with the Syrian rebels. And as the New York Times reported back on October 14th, which is about 2 days ago, the Obama administration commissioned a study on the feasibility of arming Syrian rebels in 2012. And it came back that it would be a disaster, a failure. So twice, 2 studies. You had your feasibility study, you had your generals. Both said it would fail not to do it, and he does it. Did he do it because he wants it to fail? You tell me. And one of the things he wanted to know was, has it ever worked? Would it ever work? The answer was no, yet he still thrust forward with it. I think he had like one lone success story out there, and he used that as a way to go forward. And you got to sit here and wonder why a admin that has professed concerns with keeping Americans safe would engage in a policy like this. Probably for the same reason he's engaged in policies that have impacted Ebola, from allowing the flights in, to how the hospitals are handling it, to handling our borders. So what did he do? He went ahead and commenced aid to the Syrian rebels. Al-Nusra is FSA. They're all extremists. There are no moderates, folks. And what it is this decision may have been the second attempt to arm the Syrian opposition. Several news agencies out there have recounted that the Obama admin decision to arm the rebels in Syria followed closely after a successful support of insurgency against Gaddafi in Libya. And a lot of people say that when our ambassador was there and they were killed a couple years ago, that they were actually there shipping the weapons in through Turkey over to the ISIS rebels, Al-Nusra rebels, FSA rebels. So what do you think about that? This is information that just never gets out there, isn't it? ISIS. Now, here's the topper. They opened a consulate in Turkey. Turkeys, they're NATO. They're supposed to be our buddies. They're supposed to be helping us. But amid increasing doubt about their loyalty to NATO allies, they've given this jihadist group, ISIS, a consulate in the Turkish capital. What do you think about that? Consulate in Ankara apparently opened with the tacit permission of the Turkish government. They're issuing visas there to anyone who wants to join ISIS and fight the Syrian and Iraqi governments. And they're claiming we've started our ISIS. Iraq is no longer, it's now the Islamic State. And they did this with their first Islamic caliphate. The end of the Ottoman Turkish Empire a century ago has brutally seized large portions of Syria and Iraq. Turkey has resisted in joining the U.S.-led coalition. Turkey, just the other day, they went out. They were supposed to bomb ISIS locations. What did they do? They bombed the Kurds. They bombed the Kurds, who they're not friends with. They're not fans of. The ISIS consulate in Ankara, and I think there's another one in Kankaya district, no, that is Ankara, and they're operating freely. Middle East sources also say that Turkey's president, Erdogan, his son, Belai, is hanging out with this one guy that's an al-Qaeda extremist, Yazan al-Qadi. He's a Saudi businessman who has links to al-Qaeda. And he's supposedly, this guy, Qadi, has been banned from Turkey, from entering there. Yet Turkey's president's son is hanging out with him. How about the ISIS cash flow? They're giving Turkey, despite international requests from 30 nations, they're out there dealing with them and selling $30 million a month in black market oil from Iraq. So ISIS is making $30 million a month off Turkey. And it's probably saving that gas, that fuel that's $30 million probably would cost $50 million on an open market. So Turkey sees an opportunity. And in return, they're financing ISIS. Aren't we supposed to be fighting a war against this craziness, folks? We'll be right back. 1-800-PET-MEDS. Yes, get your pet essentials, your medicines, your collars, everything you need online. And guess what? You'll be supporting the operations of this great station, the Uncensored Report. So go to my website, click on the icon for 1-800-PET-MEDS, and help us continue the information war that's going on out there. Okay, we're going to have an echo. There goes that echo. All right, now we're going to watch this quick video, and it's about John McCain and how he's been caught and his lies about the Benghazi arm deals. It's only 3 minutes, just over 3 minutes long, so let's go ahead and take a listen to it.
Well, first off, there's a realization, Alex, and you can probably figure all of our options for Syria are bad. I mean, I don't want to get into the details of getting in trouble, but there's people been fired over telling the truth to the White House, saying, look, these are the options we have, and they're all bad. And by the way, getting involved directly is just going to make things worse, you know. So the whole idea of arming these folks, and let's be honest here, there's clear evidence in my judgment that the Libya consulate that was attacked on the 9/11 anniversary was very much involved in moving, obtaining surface-to-air missiles and other arms from the Libyans and transferring it via the Turks to the rebels in Syria. I just don't think it's in our interest to be doing that sort of thing based on the fact, as you mentioned, Alex, the chances are pretty good this is all going to come back and bite us someday.
Senator, how do we know that the arms that are going to the Syrian rebels are not going to get into the hands of ISIS?
Because if we had people who were there to funnel it to the right people, and I know these people, and I know who they are, and I know how to do it, and so do other people. It's this administration that doesn't want to do it, that is sending them to certain death when they're training them and not preventing Bashar Assad from barrel bombing them. It's disgraceful.
Do you have any
it's immoral.
Do you have any comments about the arms deal from Benghazi getting into the hands of the Syrian rebels?
That didn't happen.
The 15,000 Stinger missiles?
No, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. Why would you think such a thing? Somebody is really not informing you well.
Tosh Plumley of the CIA said that the 15,000 Stinger missiles got into the hands of the Syrian.
Yes, and he also said pigs fly and the sun comes up in the west. Sure.
On blackmail. Oh, yes, absolutely. You mentioned McCain. And what do they got on this guy? I mean, obviously, he's blackmailed 3 ways from Sunday. They know he was singing like a canary to his North Vietnamese captors. For 6 months, he was giving operational schedules for U.S. flights, attack flights into North Vietnam. He also was responsible for the terrible fire on the USS Forrestal that killed, over 200 naval personnel. And he was the first guy taken off because they knew he was responsible because of his hotshot antics. They called him Johnny Wet Start because he would flame his engine out as a form of hazing.
The globalists have controlled the mainstream.
What do you think about that, folks? Some interesting information out there. And all these people, like the guy you saw there, the last one, they're highly informed individuals that have some excellent context. Actually, the first guy, the colonel, is actually still within the United States government. He's a whistleblower, and he gives as much as he can. But, obviously he can't give too much information, but he's very informed. All right, folks, that's been the show. We will be back tomorrow at 11. And remember to check out the uncensoredreport.com for any of your shopping needs, and also check out philsgang.com. You can get there by going through the uncensoredreport.com, which then Phil's Gang can say, oh, yeah, Frank's page is sending traffic our way. Yeah, it's a good thing. So let's do that if you could. And hopefully you're enjoying where we're taking this program. Hopefully my goal is to educate, inspire, and affect change, and I'm hoping I'm doing that. If I can get it just with one person, if only one person's watching and I affect change, I've done my job. All right, folks, I'll see you later.